Mellow echoes of symphonies coiled into bars of imprisonment. Trembling, I grip the metallic lamp to the burning flame flickers, swiveling, rebounding off the rough surrounding. Faint, placid trail of smoke sways, withering into the nothingness. The light sinks into the depth of my skin, adjusting my headscarf, and I run to escaping the walls that once held me isolated. The palms that spun me into predominance, the tension of the vague figures that chase me into the darkness stops me from turning back of echoes, misery and fear becoming shrieks of threat. As quiet as the bullet hits my skin, the lamp falls from my warm palm, the light's gone. Although we are the force, not made but grown, from different seeds and watered by words and sprout from bloom from all to see. Some green, some gold, some adorned with the flowers and fruit, some naked bearing all, but all of us are beautiful. And writing stories in our branches, we are the forest. For myself, I have learned to forgive others, not for them, but for me. We are not fair-weathered friends of death after all, but we stand before its closed mouth, engulfed in shards of rain and wind to almost. Now we standing around, reading someone else's grief and praises, weeping our own griefs, and there are those who lay down inside of its open mouth to taste the messiness of the eternity, but we can come from its taken death. The body is diminished and the soul is. What can anyone say about the soul except for precisely where it's not? You can ask, why would you do that? Because they wanted to, because they liked it. Why are you so quiet? Because you're judgmental? Or why would you say that? Because you obviously are unaware? Or why would you think you have a right to say or anything about what I have to do? Or because you have the right to remain silent for the right to free opinion, the right to speak freely for the you just to right for the wrong reasons. So I want to write something for you and make sure that every word is truth, embellishing nothing, and simply writing for the simple things to make us right. You're not my first love, but I know that you will be my last, and you're more than for what I could ever ask, and you will be perfect in my eyes, but not without flaw. I'm learning though, that's what I love most of all. And learning from hard times is once getting great fear. Now it's something that I forever hold dear. My strength when you don't know it, my weakness when I show it. You're everything. I was the amateur for the grandiosity, for the storing of all the darlings into the world, for that regard for each the sense of history, for the inner history, for the indulging of the idea I was dropping the LSD, for the mushroom with the red wine, me with every lush and sex, and this was escape together for the psychiatric, psychedelic troubadour for which was the hippie, for the intoxicants and carnage, and weird felt for wilder to me. Stay for the muddles, and there's all one for the try distinct. I couldn't say that I was arrogant then, but I constantly questioned myself, and I had the ego death daily. Even though I was projecting the most of the intents of the person before myself, and that was really was me then. And there was bound to be a crash and a return to the semblance and the normalcy, and then to the abandoning and the writing, for the dancing and the wild, for this and subtle return, for the degree inside that poetry, for the fiction. After all, then came after for the end of this. I really wanted to win for the not knowing a little about them. I started working about for really had it in years, for the tradition of a sense of the time to making the freaking the folk pieces of the more for the hippie that realized that it was here, bro, this is the I be tame. Thought it feels like I died out, for maybe it's culturally died out everywhere for that bland hippie of morality for the only half dead inside that died completely. Left me for the honest and not vengeful. If not cynical, if not for the still idealist, worn down by many disappointments and constantly changing perspective. Constantly fascinated with anything subcultural and wanting to disconnect things, disconstruct things, and not for the obtuse and discretion, for the pump of the different styles of the heavy movement. It actually goes somewhere. Even if that's into the past, updated for this, it'd be the last off. Finish what I thought for the last year. No to the history. A warning against those supposed humanity for the engagement of activism, and now perhaps it most be because I've read it and edited too much for the grandiosity, for the wonder, the fame, for the lease, and all the life, for the expectations. And once you put it out there, for the bound to die down, for the even feel great anymore, for not to not get into the age of debate and said there's a day and age that sentiment opened up in me with such a boundless sense for the ignorant. Being able to do and say anything what I wanted for the center for the consideration of the public. Now music is dawn for the electronic and punk and ETC, and the setup for nothing off for the hip hop, and there's an arrogance for the liberated. There's no boundaries for that rock for what you can express and what you can criticize as long as you're honest. And there's where I sit for never really part of the scene for the though I wanted to be. I've tried to make my own feel I'm getting too old to take care or to keep to. So perhaps for the arrogance more than the gut, for the check and reaction, perhaps it's the first insecurity for the growing of confidence in the self that you created work. And if someone can't appreciate that, then why would they? They're not you. It isn't a rap battle. It isn't a popularity contest, and it isn't American Idol. This is my life, and I want to make unlimited choices in art. Yes, when it comes to society, well then, I'd be the same stupid competition for the resources and the effects that are together. Negativity from which we the rich man, arrogance for all that money for the poor, for the soulful, we can find a front lawn for the artist of the statement. Maybe they'll buy it off of us so they can keep from making arrogant and unfettered. You are written as a ripple. In the face of fear, you can find joy. In the laughter and be the babbling brook, for the balm, for the soul, for the rosy cheeks and the ornament of the grin. Warm yourself from within for the light, for the bubbling into the darkness. And your body is small and resilient, for the spirit is strong and courageous enough, for the giddiness and contagious enough, for the love, powerful enough for the sun, for the warm that skin, for the warm clinging to your heart, for the choosing to see whether you can find the ugliness and find that beauty. To move past that pain for the reaching of joy. To hope undeterred for the rippling of the waters and the reaching far beyond himself for the choicing. Life filled with the zest. Questions I shouldn't ask. People would rather be sad than bitter, but I suppose I find that easier because at least when you're sad, it's the only way for your contemplation is suicide. For the it isn't your fault for the bitterness and forces that you look inside that mirror for the God forbid them having them see themselves. It was a wonderful slave, a place of poet for the bitter, for the after the saddest, and people come to him before they were asleep. And you can find a suffering for the gas and it can be the better enough for the life spent. It's drowning yourself for this and the hating of the world for the regardless of the pain for the bitterness and made myself live longer for this and be the baffling. I cannot, at times it's better. Out oftentimes, this is the God is dead for the poetry is always written for the discussing enough for the spectrum. Both, and maybe that made myself interesting enough for the spotting of the flaws beyond the cures when I went to heaven. Men who live a life in hell deserve to return. Or is that another question I'm not supposed to ask? Those goodbyes.
For the storing of all the darlings into the world, without regard for the ancient sense of history, for the inner history, for the indulging in the idea I was dropping the LSD with the mushroom with the red wine. The meat with every lush and sex and distance escaped together for the psychiatric. Psychedelic troubadour for the witch was the hippie, for the intoxicants and kindness and booze felt for a while to me. Stay for the modals and there's all one for the try this thing. I couldn't say that I was arrogant then, but I constantly questioned myself and I had the ego death daily. Even though I was projecting the most of the intents of the person for myself, that I was really was me then. And there was a bound to be a crash and a return to the semblance and the normalcy, and then to the abandoning and the writing, for the dancing and the wild, for the subtle return, for the degree inside that poetry, for the fiction. After all, then came after for the end of this. I really wanted to win for the not knowing a little about them. I started working about for the really had it in the years, for the tradition of a sense of the top to making the freaking the folk piece of the more for the hippie than realizing it was here for this that I be tamed. Thought it feels like I died out, for maybe it's culture. We died out everywhere for that bland hippie of morality, for the only half dead inside that died completely. Left me for the honest and not vengeful. If not cynical, if not for the still idealist. Worn down by many disappointments and constantly changing perspective. Constantly fascinated with anything subcultural, then wanting to disconnect things, disconstruct things, and not for the obtuse. Obtuse and discretion, for the pump of the different styles in the effort. Movement. It actually goes somewhere. Even if that's too into the past, updated for this, it'd be the last off. Finish what I thought for the last year. An ode to the history. A warning against those opposed to humanity for the engagement of activism, and now perhaps it most be. Because I've read it and edited too much for the grandiosity, for the wonder, the fame, for the least, and all the life, for the expectations. And once you put it out there, for the bound to die down, for the even you can feel great anymore. If not, then I get it. The age of the Biden said it.
Forget about your house and cars and houses for the table, guess Infrastructure will collapse.